Hey there, welcome back to SureFire Live. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Hope you guys are doing well. Tonight, I have a very special guest on, Rob Lindemann, been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. And I have a few stories I want to share with Rob tonight. One of the most successful guys ever in the chimney industry, very wise person, and runs a great business. And I'm excited to talk to him tonight. We'd gone back and forth on our schedules. He's a busy guy. I'm a busy guy, and we finally got together tonight. Before we bring Rob on, I want to thank everyone that supported the Leukemia Lymphoma Foundation or Society effort that I put forward, and came in runner up to the guy who owns Icy Corporation. So I was kind of the guy, and he raised a ton of money, which is great. None of it, it's not really a race, but it was a fun event, and we got to do that on the same day we had our Sweepaway Cancer Rally in North Carolina, and that's kind of just an event we do with cars and motorcycles and even work trucks and work vans, and we had about 45 people to 50 people. Started out, some didn't make the ride, but some just came to visit, and that was a great effort. So I rode half of that in North Carolina and rode the motorcycle back about 5 hours, got in a tux and went to the event, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you. This week I'm going to try to reach out to all the people who helped donate money and help that effort. It's a really great charity. They have a high impact. In fact, I think Mark Cuban, the guy who owns the Mavericks and does a lot of other stuff, he did, before he started donating money to a lot of different research charities, he did an impact study, and of the big five, I won't name them, but he found that the Leukemia Lymphoma Foundation or Society was the most impactful between research, direct donations to victims or survivors, and then also cures. So it was a great thing. So thank you for that. So tonight's guest, Rob Lindemann. Let me bring Rob on, and let's just start this conversation. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Mark.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Things are good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
How's the family?
Good. Family's good. I got a daughter back from college, and the other two are wrapping up, a high schooler, and my son is in 6th grade.
Right.
Over.
You have a pretty interesting family mix, and I don't know all the details, but you actually adopted, or you brought extra people into the family, and you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So my son, we adopted him from Haiti when he was nearly 3 years old. So it was a journey. Something that was kind of, we just followed our faith and thought this was right for our family, and we ended up with a small agency that worked with international adoption in Haiti. And one day we were up in the mountains of Haiti, and long trip down the mountains back home, we had a son eating breakfast at the table.
Wow, are you serious?
The next day, and he's been an unbelievable addition to our family, and couldn't imagine our family without him. But yeah, it was quite the journey, as I tell him, for God to bring us together. It was a windy road, but he did it. I'm thankful that he did it. So
I love that story. I remember you spoke at a national convention several years ago and talked about that, and I was always moved by that.
Yeah. So he's doing well. Yeah. We're.
So let's talk about your chimney journey. You are, and as far as I know, the top guy in the chimney industry as far as service businesses, what you've built. There may be some guys that we don't know about, but for all the people that are out there, you've built an amazing business. And I love the story that you talk about. Your dad kind of got into it, and what the family went through to get the business off the ground, and then you took it from there. Can you talk about it, what it was like in those early days?
Yeah. The early days, looking back, were funny. Seeing the company where it is now, but Yeah, my dad, he was a fireman, and it's funny. I met a fireman in our parking lot this morning picking up stuff that was doing the exact same thing. He was just, picking up jobs on his off days, and that's essentially what my dad did. Someone asked him, back in the '60s, hey, can you clean my gutters? And he started cleaning gutters, and assemble a little small crew of firemen that would help him for the seasonal gutters, and someone. Somewhere in about the '80s, asked him, "Hey, could you clean my chimney?" And that's how I got into it. He, like many of the veterans in our industry, bought the August West system, and top hat and tails, and went after it. And he's probably the hardest working person I've ever known. And he just hustled and drummed up business, and was the laughing stock of our neighborhood with the top hat and the tails. And they were like, "Oh, Gary Lindemann has really lost it now." And but he went after it hard, and it was a really good part-time business. He described it as cheating, because he had the fire department pay, he had health insurance, benefits, all that, and everything else with the chimney business was extra. So he kind of eased into it that way, and was able to do a little bit of work out of the firehouse.
Right.
Back in the day, probably couldn't get away with it now. And I was graduating from high school. 1991 was the year he retired from the fire department and decided to do it full
Really?
time. Yeah.
So in '91, he retired from there and went full time in the chimney business. I remember the story about you guys answering the phone at night. Can you talk about what it was like, trying to get to every call, and every call was gold? Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So the office was, we did have a home office. So there was a room that was kind of dedicated, I guess, for the office. And so there was a phone there that rang at the office, and the other office phone was on my dad's bedside. So we answered it 24/7. Whenever that phone was ringing, it was like that was food for food on the table. No matter what we were doing, we were going to stop and answer the phone and try to book a job. And his first employee, my cousin Mike, who he would come there in the morning to get his paperwork, and my dad would be in his underwear, and
I didn't realize Mike was your cousin. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he's my dad's nephew, and so he'd bring in at the end of the day, and turn in the paperwork, and part of his pay was a meal, and that was where we started.
That's Mike Rudance. If you know Mike, if you know Lindemann, you probably know Mike Bodart too. Different mics.
Two different mics. Yeah.
And so your dad, he started with family. A lot of people start with family. When did you get involved in the chimney business, and why did you get involved in the chimney business?
Well, at first it was mandatory. My parents were divorced, so I spent the summer and the weekends with my dad. And usually at the time I hated it, but I was working in the summer and on the weekends.
Yeah.
From when I was very small. And I look back, and I'm just thankful that he took the time to teach me how to work with my hands and build things, and which ultimately would be something that I'd be able to provide, a good life for my family. And I'm thankful for that. But at the time I dreaded it. So I was cleaning gutters. We got into cleaning chimneys, whenever I was off from school. So I kind of was dragged into it, and and then fell in love with it over time.
I always say that a lot of us fell into this damn business backwards, and you either love it or you hate it. And, the majority of people I know that really get into it and get it, they end up loving it. And it's a fascinating business. So you fell into it backwards. They drug you kicking and screaming. When did it finally click? You're like, I kind of like this, or I'm kind of getting into this. What did that transition? How'd that happen?
I think, well, my junior year, partly, reality, dreams and reality clashed. I was studying physics at school at University of Iowa, and I was in my junior year, and it was looking like I needed like a lifetime education to do something cool in that field. And I didn't even really like school. So I was kind of like, do I really want to do this? This is a long road. And, I talked to my dad then, because those were the summers where I started working, and I had like real jobs. Like, I liked working with men, when I was, you're like 19, 20 years old. I'd be working with these Chicago firemen. We'd be doing this work. We'd be eating lunch on a 5-gallon bucket. And I just loved that. It was, it was like a honest day of work. And
Right.
that's where and I'm like, yeah, if my dad only knew what he was doing. It's kind of sizing him up. So it was my cousin, my dad, and a couple other people there. And I said, hey, I'd love to come work with you. When I got out of school, and we arranged a deal, and we were partners for I think a dozen years until I bought him out at that point, and he retired.
So what's it like working with your dad? What's it like, one, being an employee of your dad, and then being a partner of your dad, and then what's that like?
It was hard. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think, yeah, we had a ton of fun. I think it was, when we were working side by side in a truck, those were some of the best times we've ever spent together. And we both look back at those times and wish we could still do it. I don't think our bodies can handle it anymore. But, yeah, those were fun. Growing, the business grew pretty quickly from when I got out of college. So managing all that, and the expectations became like challenging, I think, for us.
You look just like your dad. If I remember right, seeing the pictures of you and your dad, I mean, it's amazing how much. Are you guys alike in personality, or are you different in personalities?
Yeah, we're very similar. We have some differences. In the kind of the height of our tension, I think my low point was like, you know what, Dad? You know what the problem is with me is I'm half you. Like we were after each other, and we were to some degree, it's true, half him, and there were parts of us that were different. So we worked. I think we worked really well side by side for many years, and then the company grew. And my regret is that I don't think either of us, maybe it's a father-son thing, maybe it's a generational thing, could really express what we wanted. So I talked to a lot of businesses, and particularly father-son arrangements. And I'm like, the conversation would have been so easy if I was in college and been like, well, what happens if the business grows like crazy and you want to retire, and, I want to do something different, or I want to really grow it fast, and we have differing opinions. It's really easy to sort out when you're not in the middle of it. It's really hard to sort out when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, you want to get your arrangements done, but you didn't really know, right? You don't know how much you're going to get into it. And before you could make arrangements, you didn't know, you had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then you're totally in. And now we're trying to, with a growing business in Chicago, like you guys had the tiger by the tail.
Yeah. I mean, I laugh. I mean, I graduated on a Friday and I started work on a Monday. My starting salary was $23,500. And we were Monday morning, and we were in the truck, and my only real condition is like, I didn't want to be like Dad's little buddy anymore. Like I wanted like my own truck or my own route or my own, I just didn't want to be his helper. Yeah. I've done that for, a long time already.
So you start off in a truck, but with a salary. Were you chimney guy, or were you brought in to grow the business?
Yeah, chimneys. So I swept chimneys probably for 4 or 5 years, mostly seasonal. So I was also helping. We had the distribution business had started, which essentially was just my dad getting local sweeps together and buying stuff in volume, truckload of caps, and, selling them at cost to other chimney sweeps so we could all lower our price on the caps.
Right.
So that business was kind of in its infancy. We did have, warehouse. There was no inventory system. Didn't have a catalog that was digital. I think we, had, it was when you still like laid them out, put the pictures on the thing.
Right.
Those were some of my first tasks, were like trying to, create an inventory system, basically built it out in QuickBooks. We were running, we didn't have, it was all paper then.
So he had the foresight, though, to very quickly kind of start the distribution side right alongside the service side.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think that just he's really brilliant with just numbers and how to make money. So he saw that early on that there was only a couple ways that you could maybe reduce cost, or you can only charge so much for what we were doing, and yeah, it was really really brilliant. I think that.
It seemed like fast forward a little bit, when I got to know you, I think I really got to know you at the Jekyll Island when you and I built that outdoor, you and Drew Stein built that outdoor kitchen masonry, and nobody else was working. It was just, it was an event, but it was me, you and him doing all the work. You remember that? You remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wonder if it's still standing.
No, it's not. They tore it down like the next year. They sold the property and tore the whole thing down. It would still be standing though. It was well built.
It was well built. Yeah, I do remember that. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. But so let's talk about, because it seemed like you guys just at one point went from a good sized company and service, and you guys kind of exploded, and you guys have been on a really quick growth mode, because I'm trying my best to catch you and I'm always behind you, but you guys are just, what a lot of guys out there, we've gone through a really great time of growth in our whole industry, and there's some storm clouds on the horizon. But what were the things that really started making you grow it as a business? You stepping out of the truck and hiring people, like what was the thought process in that?
I think the impetus was just doing it the wrong way. I crashed and burned pretty hard in the December of 2000. I got stress-induced shingles and was just, I couldn't operate the business. It was consuming my life, had a lot of anxiety. And, I had learned, my dad, he was a hustler. It's like, if you want it done, you got to do it yourself. You got to do it and I just took on more and more and more and loved it until it was too much. We started growing. I didn't successfully delegate. I didn't build underneath me. And, it eventually became just overwhelming. So thankfully I learned that at a pretty young age. I think my daughter was, she just born. I was married, and I'm like, gosh, I'm going nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got it all wrong. If I'm going to do this, I got to do it completely differently and figure out the right way to do it. So that was the catalyst to making some changes. I think I hired a consultant that was a friend of my sister-in-law. He came in, he's like, you don't need me. You need to go hang out with these entrepreneur guys. So I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization and met 9 of the most some of my best friends. We meet monthly, and we have for nearly 20 years. And these guys were like smart, driven businessmen. And I got hooked up with them, and we'd meet and we'd be sitting there and they'd be like, hey, have you read this book or that book? And I'm just thinking, like, I haven't read a book since high school, and I'm pretty sure it was the Cliff Notes. I'm like, if I'm going to run a business the right way, I think I got to start reading these books like these guys are, because they were, running good businesses. So they really challenged me and made me see differently how to run a business, because I had never seen it. I hadn't learned about it, and
Well, most of the time we get into this blue collar work, we didn't want to know business. We didn't really like the business part. We get in because we like to build stuff. We like to do stuff. We're visual learners. We do stuff like that. And then the next thing you know, you are overwhelmed because you're good at what you do. You answer the phone. You're good with customers. You build a good product. And now what? And that's what happened to you. You're like, I can do this, but it's running me in the ground. And so, I think to your point was getting mentorship and getting counsel and getting around the people. And I say that all the time. If you really want to grow a business, you got to kind of stop going to all the technical classes. And you got to stop learning how to build the perfect crown and do this. If you got to run it, you've got to get around people and do the business side of it. Now, that might not be for everybody, but when you started moving into that, was it just, hey, I got around some smart guys and realized this is a business, this isn't just a job?
Yeah, it was definitely that. and I didn't have what it take to build a business myself. I needed to surround myself with people that were better at things that I wasn't good at. And that's kind of enter where Mike Bodart, was my first. I had bought out my dad at that point. So we were partners for 12 years and it was stalling out, and I needed to make a change. And part of it was that I was going to, buy out, his equity. And because he loved the same thing. He loved being in the field. He loved being with the customers, loved doing the work, and was like, but, we also needed someone that loved managing people and running the business. And that definitely wasn't him. That drove him nuts, and it drove me nuts too. So collectively it was tough. Right. So that was
we got a couple comments, guys. This is a two-way conversation. You're talking to one of the top guys in the whole industry. So if there's ever a question to ask, now's the time. The answers are abundant. So nice. It says Facebook user, this might be Jeremy Johnson, says, you guys kick ass. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for saying that. I got a couple more coming in on my phone. Chad Murray says, hey guys. Hey Chad.
Hey Chad.
Fred Vanderblurk, he's a new guy with us. Fred VB on here says, hey there y'all. We've got Yvette Bay watching. She says, good evening, gents. Andy Grantham says, I missed the technical class, but no, I need other education. So, Andy's actually coming to my Blue Collar University. He's going to be here Thursday, and we're doing a 2-day, business class, and that's how did, when you joined EO, I remember when you joined EO, because you told me about EO. I'm not sure when you joined, but you told me about EO. John Meredith told me about EO. And it only took me about 15 more years to join EO after you told me. But now I'm in EO, and I can see what you mean about just having that time, because it's really not, you're not competing businesses. You're just talking about life as a business person. And all of a sudden you kind of catch a lot of, we have meetings with CFOs, and we have meetings with this and insurance people and IT people, and they bring high level speakers to talk to you. You just start to become a different person. Is that kind of how it was for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was more resources, but I think the most important thing was, and they describe it there, there's the life bell curve, right? And that in the middle part, you can call an attorney, you can call a friend, you can call someone, and they help those, they can answer those questions. It's the highs and the lows, the stuff that keeps you up at night, terrified, that people are depending on you, and you don't know what the right decision to make is, and there's no one you can really talk to about it.
Right.
Sometimes too, especially when the business got successful, it was uncomfortable talking to some of my friends and sharing some of the struggles. It was just, they didn't understand, not that they didn't want to, it was just hard for them. So it's finding those people that are walking the same path with you that are like, yes, I know, I felt like that before, and this is the things that I did to help get me through it. So it was more the work-life balance and how to manage that so you can execute and do the right things in the business, because that's usually what's holding people back, I think.
I think you also understand that everybody's crap stinks too. Like you get to thinking sometimes that everybody's got it better than you or easier than you, or have got it figured out, or you're not as good. But when you get in these groups, man, everybody's got stuff like across the board. I don't care how big you are or small you are. Everybody's dealing with things that, from the outside, you just don't tell everybody your problems, but in those groups you kind of do. And it kind of makes you have a tighter bond, and it helps you understand that we're all in a battle, man. Nobody's figured it all out. And so quick question from Ted Katita. Hey Ted, how are you? He says, why did you go, and I think you touched on this, but why did you go into distribution, and how's that going for you?
Yeah, so we got into it. As I said, my dad would just gathered a bunch of local sweeps, and it started with a truckload of OD Funk, the caps. They haven't been manufactured in years, but he went on a load of those, and we sold to 4 or 5 other chimney sweeps in the area at cost. He gathered them and just bought a truckload and we all got a better price. That's how it started. He would put the caps. He had these two Corvettes in the garage at our house. He had 2 Corvettes in the work van, and the caps were literally stacked on top of the Corvettes with the tarps over them in the garage. That's how it started. And then we bought a garage where we would load caps and stuff in the attic of a garage, which I successfully walked through the drywall because there was not even decking on it. It was
just balanced on top.
Fell through. That was one of many ceilings that I've fallen through. But yeah, it was it started that, and then we outgrew that kind of quick, and then we bought kind of a proper facility in 1991 and convinced some people. Ventinox was one of our first distributors. Martin Barvala, my dad flew out to it was one of the conventions. It might have been in Boston, to meet with him, trying to convince him that he had this like legitimate distribution business. One day he made me get up on a ladder and put these foam letters that said Lindemann Chimney on a building that wasn't even ours.
What?
He was looking to buy it, but he's like, I gotta show it. He asked for a picture of a warehouse and a picture of the trucks or something like that is what he needed. He's like, I got to get a picture of the warehouse.
That's funny.
He eventually did end up buying that building, but I'm like, what are we doing, Dad? He's like, don't worry about it. Just try to get him straight up there,
That's funny, man. You make you look good before you are good.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit. What do you like better? Do you like the distribution? You like the service business? Or is that even a good question? Are they just so different?
They're so different. I mean, I love them both. The service end of it certainly has a lot more hair on it because there's a lot of moving parts. We got about 50 trucks now, so just even keeping them going, and it's just a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
it's challenging. I love it. So I think in different ways, I like each of the businesses.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like the distribution thing is just, that has a lot of it's so fast moving, and with technology and stuff, it seems like that's a lot faster moving than service. But as service companies, we're actually expanding a lot of what we do. When your dad got into it and the top hat and tails, just swept chimneys, inspected it, might put a cap on, might waterproof it. Now the pictures of what everybody's doing and you guys are doing, I've seen some of your commercial jobs. I mean, isn't that crazy? But it seems like the distribution thing, is that harder to keep up with than the service side?
I wouldn't say it's harder. There's definitely more investment involved. I mean, millions of dollars in inventory. I mean, we're buying, in a service company, you can run lean.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of inventory. You don't need receivables. It doesn't require a lot of capital. So that part of the business is awesome, because it just, if you do it right, it just makes money.
Right.
You're appropriately priced and take good look with your labor and materials, and you're not, in some inappropriately sized building that you don't need, that's costing too much. It's pretty easy to run a profitable business. On the distribution end, it's a lot different. It's like 35%, are the points, and that's got to pay for, warehouse and inventory and receivables, and it's with a lot less margin.
Right. I mean, because not only do you have to get the stuff, then you got to have people pay you. And, I see some of this Facebook stuff where they're slamming vendors. You vendors don't reach back out and go, yeah, but you don't pay your bills. Like you guys there's so many people that don't run good businesses, and you're almost their bank sometimes while they're doing stuff, and you've got to maintain all of that. And, I find it very interesting when people start running vendors down, especially you guys that are really great and you support the industry, and but you have these people out there just chattering.
Yeah, it's a tough business.
Yeah.
So I think without the service, having the service company certainly helps, and then getting into manufacturing, those aspects complement it well. It makes it.
I think you guys just understand the industry so well because you do have that big service arm. You really understand what a service company needs, and you guys work to provide it. And you guys are really great at that. Question from Mike Fazy. Hey, Mike, good to see you on the ride. Thank you for coming all the way from California to Tennessee to support Sleepaway Cancer. But Mike says, question for both. In your opinion, what are the biggest opportunities in the industry in the next few years? I'll let you start. What do you think are the biggest opportunities, or what are you guys looking at?
Well, I think, I mentored a couple entrepreneurs like right when COVID hit, and I said, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but everything's going to be thrown up in the air, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity. And that's still where we are. I feel so thankful that our industry was one that benefited for the most part from COVID. But those opportunities, I think just being flexible, looking at it is, we've noticed the phone's not ringing off the hook like it was the last 2 years. It was a little bit of dip. What does that mean? Well, we rode a wave, right? Now it's subsiding, and we, pay attention to what the market is, asking for, right? There's maybe adjacent services, that you could add on or look at. But I think I always felt the biggest opportunity is just to create awareness, in the marketplace. Because that's like, it doesn't matter how many competitors we have, because every competitor is out there. Like, we'll close maybe, 35% of the job, something like that. I think that's approximately our close rate. For every other one, they're either not doing it, or they're hiring someone else, or they're right. The more guys that are out there in my area that are doing work and letting people know that they need to get this done, the better off it's going to be. So I think the opportunity is just in awareness in the individual markets, and pay attention to what the market is asking for.
I agree. I think too, like, we've been spoiled a little bit with such high sales, and we're all overloaded with work, and sales covers up a lot of sins, right? And I think, you kind of get jaded with so many calls, and hey, you're going to have to wait 6 weeks and 2 months, and you're going to have to wait till I can get you done. And on the horizon, as that phone dries up, your cracks in your business start to get exposed. Like, if you got fat somewhere, if you don't have good business practices, if you don't jump over the bed to answer the phone 24/7, if you'll call them later, like, I think the speed of your business it's always important, but the speed of your, what you've got coming in. And then also there's a lot of waste in businesses. There's waste in leads, waste in data, waste in movement. And I think when things slow down, you got to look internally about all your movements and your waste, and how good you are on the phone and returning calls and following up. Like, the first place for me, to Mike's question, is to look internally for more opportunities inside your business. But then on another note, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity in manufacturing and fabrication, because with supply chain issues, with overseas issues, with all these kind of things, I think American manufacturing has a chance for a big rebound when we're seeing how vulnerable we are to outside. We're dependent on the world, and all of a sudden the world isn't supplying very well. I think there's an opportunity for that internal thing, to make something, to have a value added service or something like that. But I know Mike is into some fabrication with screen doors, chimney caps, and you guys do chimney caps and dampers and a handful of other things. What are you seeing on the fabrication side of business?
Yeah, it's been super helpful to be able to build. Thank you for letting us see your place. It was looking at how it was done and learning. It's great to be able to, deliver a custom product to a home in short order is pretty cool. I
think, and also we're not competing with Amazon and other things like that. So we're I think, you guys and us and Mike, to have a thing that's not mass available, it's not a commodity, it's not a race to the bottom, but where we fabricate something that's installed custom. I think there's a huge opportunity right there. That's what you guys are doing. That's what we do.
And I think like one of the largest opportunities when, with the inflation and everything we have going on is to appropriately price our services too. I think for many, many years, they've been underpriced, undervalued, and people see that now, when I think COVID exposed that people started appreciating good tradesmen, people that were actually moving stuff around the country, we're the engine of this country. Yeah. And I think people valued it and appreciated it and saw that, services like us are worth it. So the opportunity is to look at, the inflation piece and make sure that we don't lose margin and profit and price accordingly, because the demand is still strong and high, and we can deliver for the most part. Thankfully, there's not, a ton of shortages in our industry. I know, some of the logs and inserts and stuff like that have been pretty brutal. But the blocking and tackling stuff that we need to do to keep, homes safe, and then using their furnaces and appliance flues, we can get there and do it. And so I think the opportunity is to price appropriately and take advantage of the opportunity.
Talk about that for a second. Let me get to a few comments down here. Vince DeCreasy says, 2 great guys. Thanks, Vince. You're a great guy too. Yvette says, a well-rounded business owner knows not only the product and methodology, but how to run all aspects of the business. That's exactly right. And then hire who you need to do the job and focus on what you're good at. I want to get back to that because I want to talk to you about bringing on Bodart and bringing on some of your leadership team. Let's see here. Yvette also says you desecrated a Corvette. For shame.
67 too.
Oh my God.
27. It shouldn't have had caps on it.
Yvette says she misses your dad. She's writing quite a bit. He's talking to me. Chad says, I think both of you have add-on services like HVAC. That's a good point too. Was that for cash flow or just progression and expansion? So let's talk about that. So it kind of goes with Mike's thing. Why'd you guys get into HVAC? What are you seeing? You guys did gutters, chimneys, masonry, HVAC. Now talk about that.
Yeah. There were we looked at, there's a couple ways to expand the service company. I don't think we've hit the plateau in Chicagoland, but it was either to expand the market that we served or diversify the services were the 2 really big things. Expanding the market, I don't know that, there's been people that have been successful at it. It's tough. It's tough to operate something remotely, right? So to say that we could go to, maybe a different market with a person to be determined, you got to have a great manager at that location. Yeah. And, there's part of that that's challenging and difficult. And, we felt we built nobody knows who we are. We moved to a different town.
Right.
You're
starting at 0. That's right.
So we're like Chicagoland. We have a great brand. We've been around. People trust us. We're in their homes. It says, well, let's try something different. Why wouldn't they want to use us for their heating and air conditioning needs?
And so so for us to answer Chad's question, one of it was an idea of a cash flow idea, because what we learned was if we don't have a rainy spring and summer, if we don't have rain, if it's super dry, we're really hurting. We really slow down for us in the South. It's so hot here. And, we can work almost year round. So we don't ever have a big buildup of masonry for the spring and summer because we can do it all the time. So we can build that. So we notice a weakness in our plan that if we have a hiccup in weather, we're very vulnerable. with all these crews and all these trucks and overhead and all the things. So that's why we picked up HVAC, was to start to build. Plus, it has a higher ceiling than chimneys. There's a 900 truck service company in Nashville and another one that's like 500 service trucks. And I'm sure you have bigger ones than that in Chicago. So there's more competition, but the ceiling's a lot higher. Plus, you already have the ability to get in homes, service them, do contracts. You've already got a big customer base that trusts Lindemann. Well, now now Lindemann HVAC, heating and cooling, it makes sense. But for me, it's, we're up to just a couple of trucks. I think Mike said you guys are running about 5 HVAC trucks or something. Is that still kind of the case?
Yeah, that's where we're at. It's been fun. It's the part that I didn't realize is how different. It seems like such a similar business. The one thing that's totally different is in the chimney world. Nearly every time we get a call, something's stinking, leaking, smoking. They haven't looked at it in like 15 years. So there's like always work that needs to be attended to when they call us in the chimney world. In the HVAC, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Most of the time, everything's good.
Yeah.
So that's what we're finding. We're building, the plan is to build a bunch of maintenance contracts. We hired a great guy who had built a HVAC company from a few trucks to 40 trucks. So, he's helping us run it. And he says the key is to get to about, 1,000 contracts or so. And then at that point, furnaces that last 10, 15 years, they start breaking with regularity that then the repairs begin to, pile up. And that's when you can, really grow. But it's totally different. Yeah.
It's such part of that HVAC. Contracts are just the norm. It's rare in chimneys. Also, the big difference is the emergency need. Most people don't have this emergency need in fireplaces, especially in boilers and furnaces, yes. But HVAC, especially in the South, their AC goes out. You want somebody there in a few hours. I don't care if it's Saturday, Sunday, late at night. Like, the emergency services side of it was something that we're learning. We're not that kind of company yet, but it is coming. You have to have people on call, people that can go out, and of course they'll pay more, but that was a side that was very different for us. Are you into emergency services with your HVAC?
Yeah, you have to be for that. Yeah, so there's always somebody that's on call rolling. But it's cool though. It also expands. We're in and around the furnaces so much. So it's interesting how some of the jobs we would have tackled differently, and we just look at it like, well, it's probably better off if we take that hot water heater and we vent it out the side of the house.
Exactly.
You're not relining the hot water heater flue anymore, but it's probably a better solution in a lot of cases. We're finding when we have the whole, more kind of tools in our toolbox, we can be more creative and offer better solutions, particularly around the, in the basement anyway.
It kind of is like, so metal fab help us move faster and be able to fix stuff, and surround wasn't right or this wasn't right, and then build chase covers and we can move faster. Now HVAC kind of does that for us too. There's a whole group of guys that have a very special skill set. Sometimes they can come help our chimney guys. Sometimes now we look at things differently because we have that division. And I think whenever you can add services, it can be good for some people if you can manage but it's all about the people that you get. I'm super dependent on very wise, good people to run, because now I'm getting into things I'm not going to ever learn how to run. So there's a couple other questions. I think, let's see. Andy says, along with HVAC, would electrical be viable as well? What would you think about adding like the electrical, plumbing, those kind of services?
Yeah, I think like locally, I've seen there's a lot of HVAC, plumbing, and electrical that kind of go together. And I think part of that is you need plumbing with HVAC to some degree, running gas lines, and electrical, they deal with that as well. So I think when the HVAC companies get large enough, they're like, wow, we're subbing out or we're referring out so much plumbing work or gas line work that it makes sense to get our own truck. I think that's how they get into it. But I think those are great businesses. That's the one thing we realize. We have a good name. People have used us. They like the experience. You do that. Oh, we'd love to have you do that.
Yes.
I think, and I don't know, at my house, it's hard to find someone to do something that really takes pride in their craft and their trade. So to have an electrician or a plumber or somebody that you can call that's going to do what they say they're going to do is rare. So if you're that in the chimney world, I'm doing electric work. I hired a, licensed electrician, and I want that, So absolutely.
And you do want to call one company that responds well, that does good work. Like right now I'm looking at, and I got these brown patches in my yard. I pay a landscape company to keep my yard nice. We got irrigation, got all this stuff. And here I'm looking, I cannot get a hold of them. And I am just so mad because I'm a premium customer. I do whatever they tell me to do. I pay my bills on time, yet I've got a yard that is got some kind of fungus in it, and they won't return my damn call. And I'm just I'm sitting here looking at it, getting mad while we're talking. But you're right. I mean, if somebody answers the phone, come out and do the work, heck, you can do anything in my house that say you're good at. I'll give you a shot at it anyway. Mm-hmm. But so let's talk about building your leadership team. You said it wasn't necessarily your strengths, but you also recognized that you needed guys with different skill sets, and you brought on Mike Bodart. I brought on like Kent Wesley, and we bring in people with these different skill sets. They may have not been able to build a business from 0 to 5 million or 10, but they can take it from 5 or 10 on to 50. What's your thought process on that when you bring these kind of people in?
I think we look a lot like, you joke about, call it like your suck bucket. Like what is, so say if building a leadership team, Mike is president of the company, like what is giving him grief and pain and drains his energy and he doesn't like to do and he's not really good at, what is that pain point? Because that's like the job description for the next hire, right? Because we don't have someone with talent on the team that could fill that spot. Ideally we do it all internally if we could. Sometimes we can't, but that's usually where we start from. Like, where's our biggest pain and what responsibilities can we take off of someone else's plate to spread around?
Yeah. Well, I remember years ago, I learned, you had your guy from EOS, from Traction at Lindemann University, Todd Smart, I think was his name, but he showed the, elevate and delegate exercise where outstanding or excellent, and then average, or I think it was, you know it better than me, but unique, your best thing, and then excellent. And then down here was average and suck. And the stuff in the bottom part was stuff that takes energy away from you and you don't love doing and you need to hand off. And I think to me, more, as much as anything, that really helped me understand to stay in my unique little square. And as I grow the business, it gets smaller and smaller what I really do. But to recognize that in other people as a leader, and to recognize gaps and bottlenecks in your business. And then you as a leader must fill that gap, elevate people up or, get them out of that role. How much on a day-to-day basis do you, deal with that?
Not too much. I don't have any real day-to-day responsibilities. I'm review the financials. We have strategic meetings. I'm in the know at what everybody's doing. I know how all our systems work. I know all the projects that are going on. So usually it's seeing how things are working, what people are doing.
Are you the visionary now? Are you the guy that goes, I think we need to lean this way or lean away from that?
Sometimes, yeah. But sometimes, a lot of times that's from the ground up too. Right. Where there's people that are saying, hey, we need to do this. We need a custom metal shop. Our customers are demanding that we have this. And, I couldn't see it. So a lot of it comes from, kind of the bottom up, where we're taking things. Mm-hmm. But to your point, like early on, I had to realize that I'm not good at managing people.
Really? You would seem like you're a very good manager of people. Are you too nice, too mean?
Yeah, we're probably wired somewhat. I like everybody. Yeah. I fail to hold them accountable. At times I avoid difficult conversations. Those are all things that make a very poor manager. I could get 50 people to follow me probably into the ocean. you know, to get a plan to like, you know, do something is tough. You know, I love starting things. I mean, that I love it. I love building something, starting something. I hate running and maintaining it.
Well, I remember you said, "Hey, if you need to get something from 0 to 75%, I'm your guy."
I'm still am your guy. What do you need?
So
then you just lawn like yours. If you hired me to do your lawn,
yeah,
exactly. Get it all looking pretty, and then I walk away, and then you'd be pissed because there's brown spots.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs are like that, and we do have to hand off when the details really. If you don't get the details done, that you're really getting hurt. I think, you know, for a while, like I could kind of charm my way through the problems. Like, hey, you know, sorry, I missed your appointment. I'll be out there next week and we'll still be friends. But when you start growing it, those excuses don't work. You've got to just deliver. And if I'm the entrepreneur, I have to look further and say where we're going. But you know, now I feel like I just work for my employees. My job is to work for them and make their life better so they can make my customers' lives better. And we have a good, I just always think I'm working for the people who work for Ashbusters and the other companies. I'm working for them. That's what gets me up every day and gets me going. Is what can I do to make their life better? But also they need good leadership. They need a hammer. They need somebody to hold them accountable, because it just runs off the rails if you're just too nice or you're just too easy. Either way, if you're too nice or too hard, there's a leadership balance that you have to really find your sweet spot.
And it's growingly important as the workforce is getting younger. Or I guess that's a nice way of saying we're getting older. You and I used to be the young guys. Now we're talking about all our physical problems. Right. But as they need, their feedback loop is got to be constant and consistent. They need to know they're doing well and be told that often and frequently. And that's what a good manager can and will do is let them know. You know, in my generation, it was like you could assume everything was great unless I was telling you otherwise, right? When you're screwing something up, my dad or otherwise would let me know. But other than that, if no one was breathing down my, back, my work was fine.
Yeah. Be happy with it.
It's the opposite, right? Yeah. They need to know that they're doing a good job and be constantly reminded of it, encouraged, and, then they'll perform high for you. But and that requires better managers.
And to that point, they need to know if they're not doing a good job, and you can't sweep stuff under the rug. Like, you need to be quick at saying, hey, this isn't going to fly. I need you to do this. This is unacceptable. And both sides of it, because I was bad at telling you the hard thing, but now I kind of like it. Not to be a jerk, but I think it just benefits you for me to be super honest with you, super quick, not let something build up. And then they're like, I didn't even know you were mad at me. Why are you so mad? It's the 100th time this has happened. Right. My thing is to react very quickly, not in a mean way, but just in a very balanced way on the good and the bad. I know you've got a hard stop in about 7 minutes because you've got things to go. There's a lot of comments on here. They're coming in on my phone, but not on the thing.
Yeah. But
there's Yvette says, Rob, fuel your weaknesses by hiring what or who you need to enhance and fill your gaps, and then you grow, which is exactly what we're talking about. If you can know what you're weak at, don't just try to keep beating your head against the wall and I'm going to learn accounting or whatever, or even leadership. If you're not a good leader, to your point, you're a good leader, but you weren't a good manager of people, get the heck out of the way. It's so many times you got to get out of the way to let the thing grow. Chad says, Rob probably doesn't remember, but 6 to 7 years ago, I came up to Chicagoland because I needed help. He chatted with me and put me with Bodart to help me with a few hours. That changed my business forever. Thanks, Rob.
Wow. Hey, that was good having you, Chad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
fun. Anytime. And that's, for the industry, it's an open door where we're at. Similar, Mark, I know you have done the same, and it's like we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Like I said, Mark, you were gracious enough. We wanted to get into building caps, and I think we came there 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Which is, and I came to your business. You invited me up and you showed me how your trucks work and how, I came to you guys and we've been back and forth with each other, and we are not in competition with each other, and we never will be. We're in competition mainly with ourselves, but too with all the other contractors in our area. We don't need to beat each other up. We need to help each other and grow our industry so we're stronger, we're bigger, we're more sophisticated. That's one of the things about the HVAC industry is when you work with them, they're more sophisticated businesses, and we as the chimney industry can learn a lot from them because we're really 2 generations in. Your dad and even us starting in the late 70s, early 80s were generation 1, and now it's generation 2 and 3 starting to happen, and these businesses are getting better and better. But we have to help each other, just like this, you and me talking with a group of people, and probably 500 people will end up seeing this. And who knows what you said or what I said, or, they just will change that thing. And I can remember so many conversations with you, Rob, and we don't get a chance to talk, but every time we talk, I learn something, I take something away, I think differently about something. And it's so valuable to get around people that are, have a heart to help people. Randy says the old standard, which is teamwork makes the dream work, period. All right, man. Well, anything else? We got like 3 minutes and you got to go. Anything else?
You got another 10. If I got a few, if there's questions, for sure. Yeah.
I don't see questions. What do you see on the horizon? What do you see coming in the next few years? What should people watch out for? What are you guys going to do in case we have a hard economy coming up?
I think good, sound business practices. Watch your financials, watch your cash, be ready to be flexible. I mean, we're all small businesses, so the ability to change when the market changes, I think is essential. And just dial that in because when there's a lot of change, the companies that are poor performing or not well run are going to get eaten up.
Yeah.
So 2008 was the time where we had the most significant growth in our service company. And that was when, if you remember, the financial collapse happened. Our call volume went down from,
you couldn't get the phone to ring.
Couldn't get the phone to ring. And that's when we gobbled up all this market share because it was, let's charge into it. It didn't matter. We just had to be the best chimney company in Chicago. That's it. And everyone was like, yeah, we are the best already. We're the best one in Chicago. We're better than all of our competitors. I think everyone on this call probably thinks that, and they probably are, because you're here learning, right? You're spending time to learn. Right. And it was like that. So if the market were to shrink or contract, right, it wasn't about, we just did an exercise. We did, okay, what do you think the market's going to go down? If the GDP, is flat, or, disposable income goes down, what's the max? 30%? Okay, well then the chimney stuff in our market's going to be 70% of what it once was. Right. How many competitors are there? Well, there's 10 of them. Well, one of them has to drop out, or 2 of them have to drop out, and we're at the same spot. Right. So it really we're not fighting against the economy. We're just fighting against the business in our local market. Yeah. And the strong, if it's one standing, it's got to be us.
Right. And the worst thing you can say is
the business.
What's that?
It's got to end up being us, and we'll get 100% of the business.
Right.
It'll never.
The worst thing you can say is that's how we've always done it, or I'm not going to try that, because to me, when things start to change, you better adjust the sails. The wind has changed. You better adjust your sails to make sure you're catching the wind. And sometimes that's hard decisions. Sometimes it's different services. Sometimes it's cutting out some fat or dropping something. You better know your numbers the whole way around, because if you don't know how profitable you are. I've gotten several calls lately like, yeah, we went with a cheaper guy. Yeah, we went with somebody that was way cheaper than you. And I'm like, way cheaper than me. These people don't know. They probably didn't raise their prices this year. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You better know your numbers right now. If anybody's listening, you're not really dead set on all your numbers, your profitability, your margins. If there's anything Rob and I can both tell you, you must know this to grow a good business and a stable business, especially through hard times. All right, man. I think that'll do it. I know you got stuff to do. You've been so gracious with your time. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great. Hello, everyone out there. Yeah.
One of the best dudes in the business. So thank you. Go enjoy time with your family. Have a good night, man.
All right, take care. Thanks, Mark.
I love talking to him. We were fast friends first time I met him, and he's just a down to earth, humble, good guy that runs a great business and a great service business and distribution business. So if you're not a customer of Lindemann Chimney Supply, I highly recommend you calling them. They got great people. That's one of the best things about that company is they know how to hire really good people, and they've got a great culture over there. So please feel free to reach out to them and share some business with them. All right, guys, that's our time. Thank you for joining us again tonight. We'll be back next week. We'll talk to you soon.